It projects to be a great episode today here on the Dynasty Six Pack. As we're done with July, we move into August, training camps, preseason, and eventually the NFL season. So we're projecting all that to go really well. The kickoff redraft-ish season, we're going to start talking about player projections for the 2025 NFL season. So enjoy this episode. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of Dynasty Six Pack. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Senra, and joining me are my co-hosts. First, we have Rahul Natarajan. Rahul, how are you doing?
Kyle, doing well. Good to see you. Good to see Jamie again. As always, very excited. Like you alluded to, it is the first episode of August. I think when we had our first July episode, I said the air felt a little bit different. There's something, the feel just changed a bit. The vibe changed a bit. I'm certainly feeling that in August. Under 30 days to go till kickoff, and I could not be more excited. So I think projections, we're chatting right before this. It's like a very appropriate time for this episode. So can't wait for this one.
And we're going to project this comment onto the screen, courtesy of Jamie Perog, our co-host, who behind the projected comment with the word projection in it is Jamie projected on a screen next to a projector in another screen. Did I get all that right, Jamie?
I think so. We're projecting players, so it fits right. But I can't wait for the Fantasy Football Expo this weekend. I don't know if you guys ever went. It's pretty much like Christmas for football nerds, right? It's like just connecting with the community, meeting some of the best minds in the game, and whether we're just like draft talking, debating stuff, or just chilling, having some beers with the fantasy family. This is like the highlight of my off season, so I love it. Real quick, before we get started, I just wanted to promote my new article. It just came out today. So are you guys still using kickers and defenses in fantasy? That's like fantasy football on dial-up internet, like slow, outdated, painful to watch, right? So go check out my article over at Going for Two website. It's under the redraft articles. It's called Fantasy Football is Better Without Kickers and Defense.
Well, right on the nose. I mean, you know what you're getting with the article. I mean, it says it all right there. I will say absolutely no kickers in defense in Dynasty. I don't know. I mean, maybe Albert will agree or disagree at Dynasty Six Pack. I think priority is, of course, no kickers in defense in Dynasty. That should never be a thing. I don't think you have to have kickers in defense in redraft. Clearly, Jamie thinks you shouldn't. So, Albert, let us know what you think. Kickers in defense and redraft, yes or no? Rahul, redraft is your thing. It's your favorite format. So, ideally, I'll give you the judgment because I can take it or leave it. I mean, I don't mind it from a redraft side. I definitely don't ever want to see kickers in defense in a dynasty league or a salary cap contract league, anything like that.
Yeah, I think I share the exact. Yeah, I think I share the exact same view as you, Kyle. Certainly not in any type of team where you format where you keep the majority of your roster year to year. I have waged a war to get those positions cut for my home leagues, and it's not been very successful. I don't mind it. I do agree with people who say it adds a bit of variance, or close your ears, kids, a bit of fuckery. Sorry, Joe, but it does add a little bit of fun, so to where I'm not too motivated to. That's not the hill I'm going to die on, at least in redraft.
Well, I've heard it's either 3 minutes or 10 minutes in, and then you're good for swears. So we're at 4 minutes. So if it's the 3 minute, you're good. If it's not, hopefully the "re" at the end of it messes up the word algorithm and it's not recognized. So we'll go.
Yep.
No "reing" around here. But I'll bring it around just to talk about. Of course, we're on the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel, live every Wednesday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. If you're listening on the audio, do encourage and recommend people to come join, especially for tonight. Talking, if people want to comment on the projections we're going to be talking about or have questions about them, this is the perfect avenue to do it. Is come in and ask questions directly in the live chat. on the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube page, the video, you leave comments after the fact. We will come back and answer it, but obviously we can get a lot more into details and discussion when they're being asked live. So whatever your preference, audio, video only, be sure to subscribe wherever you are. And of course, Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel wouldn't be possible without FantasySixPack.net. Get your all-access membership now and at a reduced price, 50% off. And a lot of great things in the all-access membership, especially in season. Just hearing Joe go through the spiel, there's a lot of DFS betting tools and sheets that become available through the all-access membership. And there's a lot of good free stuff on the Fantasy Six Pack website. But you get that next level, you get that all-access membership. Again, you can do it at a 50% reduction with the promo code F6PPods. So that's all letters capitalized, and I almost said Roman again, but the numeral 6, F6PPODS, F6PPods, and talking more FF, Fantasy Football, Fan Tracks, a great place to play fantasy football. Lots of customizable leagues, your huge customizability to your leagues is top of the line in terms of any type of fantasy platform. They allow larger scale tournaments as well. Remember, the Canada Cup used to always be on Fantrax, and there's a partnership right now, fantrax.com/fantasy six-pack for more details. So details on the projections, right? That's what we're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll start at the top. We'll start at number one. And I asked you guys to overlook my projections. We'll go through target share and touchdown projections for the 2025 season. Ask you guys to look through things and let me know if there are players or teams you want to talk about. And Rahul also put some questions, some more general ones that we'll hit right away from the get-go. The very first one, if you want to ask it, Rahul, go ahead. You did type it. I was going to read it out, but I'll let you actually ask your question.
The very first one on the list, just to make sure. Yeah, this is something that, thanks obviously for sharing so much of your detailed work, Kyle. I'm really excited to get into your kind of methodology. As someone who my day job is really all day in the spreadsheets, but one thing that just kind of stood out reviewing your work and just projections across the industry in general is how do you account for floor/ceiling, really the emphasis on ceiling perhaps, outcomes when creating these projections?
Well, I think first off, touchdowns kind of are already a ceiling outcome anyway. I am, it's especially I'm not doing full projections like some people like Ryan Searfoss from going for 2 and 2. Joe certainly has Fantasy Six Pack. Again, more great stuff you can get through the All Access benefit. But projections, I am looking for the highest outcome possibility with the touchdowns, but then target share is also that safe floor, and combined has allowed me to kind of help, at least in theory, help me rank wide receivers and tight ends better. But ultimately, I guess really, Rahul, what I'm trying to project are actually average median outcomes. I don't know every player's average in the middle. What are those expectations like, and then rank them based off that. So I guess as we'll see with touchdowns, it can be kind of binary in terms of what's a ceiling, what's a ceiling being those games they hit touchdowns, how often they hit touchdowns, versus the floor, which is when they're not. What are they doing when they're just scoring fantasy points without touchdowns, and looking at those. But ultimately, I guess I try to cut through both and just find the average or the median or the middle, and then work through there.
That makes sense. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Just to jump in really quick, that is certainly the most sensible, and you're definitely going to get onto this. But then I'm just wondering how you find the edges there when using your projections. But I'm sure we're gonna get into that.
Well, I guess a quick thing is figuring out where do my projections differ from the rankings, right, or the consensus. I guess just viewing players as values or as overpriced based on that. So I would say the bigger edge there. I've always thought the bigger edge in fantasy, by the way, figuring out which players to avoid, because that you have control. You can say I want to target these players, but if someone else takes them before you, it doesn't matter that you were going to target them. You don't get actualize that. But if you have a player you're going to avoid, no matter what, they won't be on your team, because you can choose to just always go with someone else. And so the players you avoid are probably that's the biggest control you have on fantasy. So I guess specifically Rahul, I would go to say, okay, which players are low in my projections but high in consensus? Just avoid those players.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's maybe the simplest way they'd be incorporated.
Makes sense.
Now, your second question as well. You actually ordered the questions really well for when to bring them up. Although one, my answer is I'll answer it next week, so that one doesn't really matter when we bring that one up. But yeah, so your second question leads us into our first topic as well.
Yeah. So the second question I had, there's definitely a couple players that maybe generated this in mind. Maybe you can guess from the ones that I put down. But how do you work in players on new teams, coaching / scheme changes, offensive line and other supporting casts, etc.? Anything that's not grounded in something you can look to previous seasons on directly for that specific team or that specific player. I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, so I guess I try and take the largest sample size possible when doing both target share and touchdown projection. So I'm looking at players' entire careers. So I'm less looking at coaching tendencies and O-line and things like that throughout, because I'm just, what have they done for the course of their careers? And they're going to have different coaches at that point, different O-lines. And sure, some players might only have had one coach or one offensive line. But ultimately, I guess I try to look at as large a sample size as possible that I don't have to adjust for those things as much. Now, for the new player, like players on new team situation, and there's certain, as I get into an example, I'll explain maybe how coaching changes might come into it. But across all projections, rookies and second-year players are so hard to project, especially when you're trying to find median outcomes. Because with a 1 year sample size, you don't know if that's an average, is that a floor, you have no idea where that is. Once they start getting to year 2, year 3, you have a better idea. But rookies and second-year players are so difficult, especially rookies for these. So I guess to your point of where you wanted to start, we'll start talking about target share projections. I'm going to share my screen actually, so that folks can, again, on the YouTube channel can watch through. I guess if you guys notice any comments come up, I'll be lost in the spreadsheet quite a lot. So I'll try and keep an eye on the screen as well.
We've got our man on the ground, Jaymyr Perog, in the comments. So you'll let us know.
All right. So I pulled up the AFC East target shares here. So you'll see the top, you see the Bills and the top of the Dolphins. Now, for capturing target share, one thing I want to do is I want to know what's every player's target share every year of their career so far. And I will credit Player Profiler for supplying the information that I put into the spreadsheet. Now, this is a much better way to look at it than Player Profiler, because I had to look year to year. Like, you can't go to a player's profile and see what their target share is their whole career. They show you one season at a time, and you got to look and scroll. This is much better because you see everything all at once, and I can put all teammates together in one spot. So that's mostly why I created this, because I was looking for target share stuff and nowhere had it where I wanted to see it. So I had to just pull from a different site, place it in here, and then this is how I want to view target share. So that's mostly why I created this, because I've always wanted to see it like this, and no one has it like this. At least I hadn't found anyone like it, so I decided to make it in. But essentially, again, back to median average outcomes, what I do is once I capture a player's whole career, I calculate what their average target share is for their career. And then in the projection column, I've got it as I've inserted a sum calculator here. So let's take out Curtis Samuel's 5.2%. You see that it reduces. So this is how I kind of ensure, as I'm putting all the target shares together, it all makes sense 100%. Now, this is assuming every player basically plays every game. Things are going to be different because the way target share is calculated, it's on a per game basis. So at the end of a season, you're going to go much higher than 100% because some players are going to, it's not accounting for their target share for the whole season of the team. It's just for the games they played. So you're going to naturally, it won't be pretty in the 100%, but I figured to do projections going into it, to aim to get that 100% exactly. So that's kind of how I gather it and capture it together. So it's all the players, all the wide receivers, and all the tight ends on the team that I think are relevant. And then for the running backs, it's tough to find individual data, but I also think it's more valuable just to look at team running back when it comes to target share. Now that is where I might change, like the coaching changes might come in, because how many years am I looking? Because that's something where I had to go to Pro Football Reference and I'm calculating team target shares myself. So all those are calculated myself for the running back numbers. Again, Pro Football Reference being the stats page to reference there. So how many years do I choose, right? Like how far do I go back? And I wanted to, it's like here I went for 3 years. And not coincidentally, that's James Cook's rookie season, right? I could have maybe used Josh Allen, right? And I think for a lot of teams, I did use the quarterback, but it also feels like Cook is targeted differently than other running backs that Josh Allen's had. So I thought for this case, let's look at the 3 years James Cook's been there. What's the target share been those 3 seasons? For a lot of instances, I do kind of want to go with the quarterback just for a longer tenure, longer sample size. Maybe for the Bills, I should have. Ultimately, I'm going a little bit, as you see, a little bit lower. There's a lot of manual adjusting. Like you get these averages. I will say, I'll show you one team in this AFC East, the Jets. Notice how the averages are almost all what the projections were. This was one team where it was the first team I completed it at. Basically, I had the target share data. I adjusted for the running backs, but everyone else I kept at their averages, and all I had left was the rookie. And that's the point. The rookies are the toughest to project. This was easy. It's like, okay, 10.9%. He was the first rookie I ended up projecting, Mason Taylor, that is tight end for the Jets. But I also kind of just continued to reference it. I've got a tab here for all the rookies that I can kind of reference every time I'm trying to figure out the rookie projections. Okay, do they fit in with how we view them in a lot of times dynasty drafts from our landscape, but how we would draft them in fantasy? Like, is this the order I'd expect them to go in? And as long as they fit within the other rookies, I felt like that was pretty good. So Mason Taylor was kind of the one at 10.9%. That's just what happened to be left over. And ultimately, once I completed everything, that turned out to be a really good number. So the Jets was one that it went so quickly and so easily. Most of them didn't go that easy. So most of them were struggles. Like I was working on the Chargers today because they chose to sign Keenan Allen. I had to redo it all essentially. So so that's, I guess that's a walkthrough of how this works. So before I go any further, do you guys have any questions?
I like this. Like I'm soaking it all in. Mason Taylor, though, I do think he's going to get more than a 10% target share. I at least say 14 to 17. I just think he's going to be the number 2 target on the team. But I'm just not seeing anywhere where I could take away from anyone else. Like maybe Lazard could drop down 2%. Reynolds.
And you know what? In hindsight, maybe I should have made adjustments with Lazard and Reynolds, like reduced them and put Taylor above. I was supposed to grab a pen and like take notes of which ones I should change because I do trust both your opinions as much as I
also with Justin Fields, he doesn't really target running backs, so maybe you can take away like 2% from the running backs, add that to Mason Taylor.
Well, to be fair, I already reduced this so I've got 3 years of Breece Hall. 18.5 would be the lowest target share the Jets have had since Breece Hall. So it's a full percent from last year. Maybe to your point, maybe I could reduce it more. But
now, have you went back and looked at Justin Fields and how often he targets the running backs? Maybe that could help that number.
Yeah, I'd have. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, maybe I should have gone in. And again, it's choosing what to use for the running back data was tough. It was really difficult here when it's a different quarterback. I might have actually some data here. If I go to the Bears, I mean, 20.7% Roshan Johnson's rookie season with Fields. So that was quite a lot. That's again more than what we're expecting. But yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I should have go back and get a bit more on Fields.
That's a superstar running back there, Roshan.
Well, and again, a quarterback to a new team, I wanted the data for, okay, what did that team do with the current running back on team? So again, with the Jets, that's why I chose the 3 seasons since Hall's been there. Sorry, go
ahead. No, I'm good. One question though, like say if in the middle of the season, if a wide receiver switches teams, would you lower that projection share because it does take a player to get acclimated a little bit? Maybe they're not getting as many targets.
That's an incredible question because I guess I should really point out these are just preseason projections. These are all for like draft rankings, redraft. I'll update this after the season, but I don't really touch this during the season. And the same would go for the touchdown projections. It's all just the goal line guide. That's the weekly touchdown projections. I don't really have something like that for target share. I haven't come up with anything. Maybe that's innovation. Maybe I should be calculating target share through a weekly basis and finding a way that influences the weekly rankings.
I guess one thing maybe you could talk a little bit about. I would almost say that the numbers that I see here for like the fantasy relevant guys maybe Garrett Wilson is not the best example because he's sitting there at a whopping 27%, right? But when I add up Josh Reynolds through Corley and then Rucker and Smart, that's like 31%. So I guess the question I'm getting at is like, how are you factoring like wide receiver 3s through 5s and like all these like supporting pieces? Like how do you think about that? Is that mainly just like a straight like what they've done in the past, or
I'm kind of trying to project each player individually and then adjust to make it fit the team fit. So again, the Jets, this was one of the ones that went so easily. Honestly, maybe that was so much of these other teams took times that once I had a team set, especially early, I kind of just let it be. So the Jets, this is one team I barely touched. So that's why maybe Taylor should have been higher. If the other rookies were a lot higher, I would have, I have to go back and adjust Taylor, but because all the rookies seem to fit there, and maybe the self-fulfilling prophecy, I made them fit around Mason Taylor, but a lot of it did fit around that 10%, which it maybe might be low for a lot of those rookies. I mean, I certainly had McMillan and Hunter in the 18% each, but yeah, I'm not surprised that comments would be about the rookies because, like I said, that is to me always the hardest to do. And I'm not sure if I'm overdoing it or underdoing it. I think a lot of what I learned last year, I did underdo it, and maybe I needed to. I wasn't sure if that was last year just a crazy exception because a lot of these rookie wide receivers hit. So if I see it again that I vastly underproduced, then I'm going to in the future have to up the rookies in spite of rookie fever existing for me anyway. But yeah, I mean, is there any rookie we want to talk about other than Ashton Jeanty? I mean, that's the rookie we want to talk about the most.
I mean, rookie, yes. Really, team situation kind of inspired that question I asked. I'd love to take a look at your projections for the Jaguars because that's one where prominent rookie. I don't know if that's.
No, I was talking about Ashton Jeanty.
Okay, let's do Jeanty first, but I do want to get into the Jags. I mean,
okay,
later.
Sure, yeah, we could touch on that after. I was going to talk a lot about the Jags for touchdowns more, but yeah, we'll get to the Jags for target share. But and Jeanty, I mean, we're not really looking at his target share specifically. It's again the team's target share.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I think this is since Zamir White's been on the team. I think those are the 2 years there because it's a new quarterback. The top 2 running backs on the team are completely new, so you almost, and this is one team where I actually elevated the running back share over their career average. A lot of times I was reducing as a way to help make things fit. But this to me screamed of they're investing in Jeanty to probably be the 3rd target on the team. So I raised the Raiders running back target share this year by 2 full percent over what the average had been the last 2 seasons, which had been stable in the 18% range. But it just feels like Jeanty's going to be that 2% extra, still lower than Jacoby Myers. And actually, that's one thing I wanted to try to maintain as much as I could. Whoever had the higher target share through their career, having them be higher, right? So historically, Myers had a higher target share than what the Raiders running backs have over the last 2 years. So in my projections, in theory, Myers should be higher. Now, here it's barely higher because I have him staying at his average, but drastically increasing where the Raiders are going to be passing as a team. Again, because of Ashton Jeanty. And I tried to, again, for the top end players, keep them around their career averages because to me that's what it all revolves around. The other pieces, and maybe the Jets, maybe that was a team where those secondary pieces were a little too high, but they're all gonna go up and go down based on who's around them. But the main players, they're gonna earn their target shares no matter what the situation is. It's kind of the thinking. And
is that something that's sorry to cut you off, Kyle. I'm wondering if that's something that's kind of sticky year to year. Is that something more than because I would agree with that. I would assume the same thing, but I wonder if that's something pretty sticky if you look at wide receivers who are between the 3rd year of their career to 7, whatever, maybe their prime. I wonder if that is target share is a very sticky stat like year to year.
Well, I think they'll be in ranges, right? Like if you get like the guys that are super low, just always stay super low. There's a couple of examples. I can't remember exact players, but we could look through. Maybe we'll find some as we look through. But there were definitely a couple players where, man, there was a random 12 or 15% target share season, and every other year was in single digits. So you definitely get like those types where, and I mean, like even looking at Jacoby Myers, you see this a lot. A rookie season where they just don't quite hit it. Oh, here's one. Ian Thomas, right? Ian Thomas as a rookie had 14% target share. Hasn't come close to even getting like essentially not even half that for any other season of his career, right? So as a rookie, it's weird that sometimes you get a player that they're thrust into the role and they prove they can't do it, so they never earn it again. And then other players that like Jacoby Myers, 2019 Patriots, like peak Tom Brady trying to win a Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure no, they didn't win a Super Bowl that year. Actually, that isn't. I can't remember if that's his last season. I can't remember years now, but this is Brady looking at the veterans, looking at Gronk, looking at Edelman.
Yeah.
He's not really going to look at the rookie and Jacoby Myers. And so, his target share was, and it's not just Brady and Myers here. I've noticed that a lot, where the rookie season doesn't look good, and then from then on, they really elevate and they start to smash. So you definitely do see it go up in year 2. Not all the time. Some guys they're low and they stay low.
I wonder. That's interesting about, which I think is also, I think everything you said is like believable too. Like the guys who are like randomly in single digits having a 15% share season seems like, okay, like I can understand how like a guy could jump from like 50 targets a year to like 80 on one season. Might be injuries, might be like a bad defense that to throw more. But I wonder if the guys, like if you isolate only guys who are like 20% target share, like more established options, like how we started talking about, like the established options are the ones you keep around their career average. I wonder if you look at like the 20% plus guys, they're like deviation from the average is much lower. It's probably what I would expect.
Yeah. Again, you get the random outlier season, but yeah, Myers is a good example, right? Okay, so his career average is drastically reduced by that one season, right? Because that's his average is actually lower than every other year of his career. Basically matches his 2023 season at 21%, 20.9% for his average. But
yeah,
those 5 years of his career, he's between 24.9 and 21%. So you do tend to see a lot of those examples.
And QJ had nearly a 22% target share.
Yeah, they were desperate last year, right? I mean, and that drastically increased it. He more than doubled it. And so, like his number, for instance, like I know I'm getting that 13.6 as I'm almost okay. What changed last year? Well, they didn't have Keenan Allen. Right now, Keenan Allen's back, so maybe that 21%. And I mean, they've invested in Trey Harris, although I still have Johnson higher than Harris. Harris, I actually think was a big. I like even today when I redid this one with Keenan Allen, he was someone that lost about 2%. I had Quentin kind of around his career average of 16. What I've done now is the average between his career average and his rookie season. So you're like double counting his rookie season almost. And that's how I got the 13.6. And for Keenan Allen, I just gave him Quentin Johnson because like it was trying to reduce it like reasonable to Keenan Allen is tough. It's just the assumption that with McConkey there, now this is a huge change for Keenan Allen. Like it's halving what he did last year with the Bears essentially. But he's also never had Ladd McConkey to play that role that he has. So I think that's why I didn't have Keenan Allen too high. But you want to talk about the Jags? We can get to the Jaguars. And again, I guess rookie with Trey Harris, right? 8.3%. So that's reducing by a couple percent on where like Mason Taylor was, for instance. That's closer to the Jack Bash, Kyle Williams range. Yes, Jaguars here. So Travis Hunter, that's the rookie you wanted to talk about, right?
It definitely is. I think this is maybe kind of the point I had made about like ancillary pieces. Like, you had through like wide receiver 6, like tight end 2 and 3. And this is an offense where I could see it having a very like consolidated target tree and you even just fewer names listed as like a simpler.
Yeah, I've only gone to 5 receivers here, and I only had 2 tight ends instead of 3. Yeah. So you will see some, like, it's not always 6 and 3, right? So this is an example.
Yeah. Interesting. Running back. I'm curious what I'll look this up on the side. The Bucks running back target share last year was at 19%. 2024 is at 21.5% last year.
Yeah.
And so this year you have 14.5% as a running back target share. And so that's one where it's like, it's so difficult to like figure out, I assume, what that coaching scheme like impact, a team that used a lot of like running back screens last year. Is that something we'd expect to carry over, or is that very specialized to like the personnel where they had an undersized back and a great pass catching back, and that's actually why it's very complicated.
And I'm looking at it. I mean, this is Trevor Lawrence's game still, right? Like Cohen can only do so much.
Yeah.
So I've got this as this is an example of the quarterback. Like the quarterback has targeted between 13.8 and 15.9% of the running backs in his 4 years in his career. So I don't see it deviate. Like last year was a career high. Things didn't really go well last year. I mean, like, to be fair, that was a lot of Mac Jones too. Like this target share is for the whole season, right? So that's Lawrence as much as it is Mac Jones. So that's why I expected it lower. I gave it 0.5% lower than where his career average had been so far. So no, I didn't. I'm looking more at the players. I will say the one team where the coach came into play was the Vikings. For the running back share, I used the 3 years since Kevin O'Connell's been there. Because you essentially have last year with Aaron Jones, but you have nothing with J.J. McCarthy. So rather than just looking at last year, I looked at the 3-year average since Kevin O'Connell's taken over as head coach. But that was like the only team where I used the coach. I think most of the time it was either the running back or the quarterback, depending on what I thought was more appropriate. Usually what was a longer sample size. Obviously, I didn't do that with the Bills. Probably should have.
No, but it makes sense with sorry, Jay, but just with James Cook there, I think it was Devin Singletary and like Damian Harris. Maybe he had Damian Harris out a year, but like Devin Singletary, Zach Moss. That was the Bills duo for a long time, and neither of them had that pass catching profile that a James Cook has. So
yeah, I don't think I remember. I think I may have looked at it at one point, but they definitely never got to. Maybe it wasn't the target share. I think I just looked at raw targets and I saw it was. James Cook clearly made a difference. His first year there, Singletary was catching more than he had before too. So it was just a shift. I wonder that might have come with a coordinator change too, right?
Joe Brady, yeah.
So, but again, I was always looking more at the players more than the coaches.
I see. Okay.
Sorry, did you want to look at the Jaguars more? I guess I kind of.
Maybe it's a topic we'll come back to when we touch on the touchdown ones, because again, the next question I would have is like, a lot of people, the betting markets are projecting this step up from the Jaguars offense. So that's where I wonder, that's been a very up and down offense year to year, and I wonder, and you'll probably show us how you broke that one out. So
yeah, so I was gonna actually talk about this topic, the projection leaders. So first off, like I showed some of the target shares, but who are the highest? And there were 4 players that ended up at 28% target share. Now, last year alone, I think there were 2 receivers that hit like 34% target share, and AJ Brown and Malik Neighbors. But those are pretty crazy outliers, especially Neighbors. That's insane. It's one of the craziest things ever. I didn't repeat it there. I got Justin Jefferson leading the league at 28.8%, and CeeDee Lamb right behind him at 28.6%, followed by Malik Neighbors and Puka Nacua, both above 28% as well, 28.3 and 28.2, respectively, for Nacua in third, Neighbors in third, Nacua in fourth. So those are the top 4. I think we saw the 5th one actually with Garrett Wilson at 27%, and then we get to the 26%. You get Jamar Chase and Amon-Ra St. Brown in that range. I believe Devontae Adams is there too. So it'll descend throughout and eventually get to other players. I think the highest rookie we just saw Travis Hunter at 18.4. And I think McMillan was a little higher at 18.9. Those were the top rookies for target share, which naturally is a lot lower than last year's rookie at 34% from Malik Neighbors, but I'm not even projecting Neighbors to be there.
Yeah,
that was pretty wild.
That fits more of like the way you're doing it. It's kind of like the median or average outcome too. It's not every rookie is gonna be like the NFL leader in targets per game like Neighbors was.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now those are the target share leaders. Touchdown leaders now, as we transition to talk about touchdowns. So I have Patrick Mahomes with the most passing touchdowns at 37, and I will explain how I got to that number. Explain the process of how I look at team touchdowns, and I'll use Mahomes as the example to showcase that. I was going to also show Trevor Lawrence per request. From rushing touchdowns specifically, there were two players tied at 12, Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor. Both players I project for 0 receiving touchdowns. So they're maybe then that's the reason. Like, okay, I look at this. I do look at both separate when I'm calculating for players, and I'll explain that again, the process of how to look for players. How to look for the non-quarterbacks, I mean. Slightly different once you find the quarterback for their passing touchdowns. Receiving touchdown leader is Ja'Marr Chase at 11 receiving touchdowns. And the scrimmage touchdown leader, funny enough, is Jahmyr Gibbs, even though he wasn't mentioned. So he didn't have 12 rushing touchdowns, but he also had more receiving touchdowns than those guys. So he ends up being the player I projected with the most touchdowns. One thing I hope I don't regret not taking him in Scott Fishbowl. I have Barkley for quite a lot of touchdowns too, so that's good there. But yeah, so those are where the leaders are at, and I expect whoever leads in receiving and rushing touchdowns, they're going to have more than 12 and 11, right? But I'm not necessarily projecting the ceiling outcomes; I'm projecting the median. So that's kind of where each of these players, their median represents the highest average median.
Just to talk about the touchdown work, I guess one question I have that doesn't look like I included, but is, do you see what are some like disagreements against like consensus rankings of touchdowns? Have you learned through doing this touchdown progressions, like going back to like Ashton Jeanty, a player that in like redraft leagues, going around like the 1-2 turn, like certainly a top like first 2 round pick. The stick that people used to beat him with is like the Raiders still probably going to be like a bottom 10 offense in touchdown scores. Yeah, you talk about Jeanty, or like what are some like differences from consensus that doing touchdowns has like had you find is a question that I have.
Yeah, I was actually going to show the Raiders later.
I'm jumping all over the place.
Well, yeah, they are pretty close to being bottom 10 in touchdowns, but I still have Jeanty is healthy enough to probably be worth being a first rounder as kind of I guess the spoiler for later. But I guess sorry, I'm just trying to look through your other questions if there was something that I wanted to get you. I guess your third question of how I use these projections for fantasy football, I will really get into that next week. So that was kind of the plan of why this episode was useful, because then I'll show specifically at wide receiver, tight end, how I use these projections to specifically make the rankings. I sort of use it to help shape running back and quarterback, but it's like the main basis for the wide receiver, tight end rankings. So I'll get into that specifically because I'll be able to show it really well through there.
We can save that question then for next week as well.
I guess your fifth question is you asked about advice I give. And we can get to that later too, but there is one specific advice I wanted to start with, and part of the reason we're starting with Mahomes. And that is the advice is when you're doing projections, start from the team level first and then the players. I'm projecting what I think at the team level, but then I also go, okay, what should each player be? And then adjust to the middle ground, a little bit like the target shares, right? Only the target share is not a moving target. It's just always 100%. So you just make everyone fit to 100%. Here they project the team touchdown totals, especially passing, and do the receiving touchdowns, match those passing touchdowns, and then adjust it. Usually adjust the receivers to the quarterback. Occasionally, if it's so bad, I might adjust the quarterback. I might change what their touchdown rate is. Oh, maybe they've never had this good of a receiver core before. So I will up their touchdown number than it's been earlier in the career, or the opposite. Man, this receiving core is awful. Like no one here scores touchdowns. Maybe I should reduce this quarterback. But other than rare circumstances, I'm usually adjusting the players to the quarterbacks.
I see.
So yeah, touchdown projections. So let's stop sharing that and we'll share the other one. Time taking. I'm sorry. Okay, so we get. Oh wait, it's not on screen. There you go. And so, you want? Should I zoom in here?
Yeah, maybe one team. Zoom in a little bit. Let's see.
Yeah, I'll scroll it over here. I'll go 150, and then I'll scroll over. Okay, so Bills again is the example. But anyway, so what you get on the target chart or in the touchdown sheet is first off figuring out quarterbacks' pass attempts using typically their career average touchdown rate and those two numbers together to get a passing touchdown. And again, it's one of those where I insert a sum function so that when the column is complete, it'll give me what the answer is at the bottom. Rushing, I have to find maybe a better method to get team rushing touchdowns because a lot of it I am relying on just the individual players, and that's where it becomes really tricky with the rookie.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the passing touchdowns, once you get the quarterback level, it's a lot easier to make it all fit. So I mentioned Patrick Mahomes is the leader. So how did I get Patrick Mahomes numbers? Well, actually I have a page here explaining everything that I did pull. So with Mahomes, I calculated the first thing. Where do I get this pass attempt number? What I typically do is just look at a player's career. How many pass attempts per start for their career? And just for a lot of quarterbacks, that's what I'm using as the number. So for Mahomes, for the course of his career, it's 37.2 pass attempts per game. That equals 133 pass attempts for a full season. At his career average touchdown rate of 5.9%, gives 37 touchdowns. So that's how I end up getting that. So that's how you, at the team level, you calculate the quarterbacks. So does that make sense?
Yep. Makes sense.
Now, again, there will be times and there will be certain quarterbacks where I'm not using their career average. In fact, Lawrence is a great example of one where I didn't use his career average touchdown rate. And all of that. It's on an individual level. If there's something extreme about a quarterback, one season that changes the average, I might exclude that season, for instance. Or if I think they're going to go higher than they have, adjust to reach a higher height. I think they're going to break out, so I'm going to project them higher. Again, typically because they've got better receivers now. I think their touchdown rate will go up. But for a lot of the longer, more established quarterbacks, I'm trying to go with their career average because it's typically the younger quarterbacks that you'll adjust more, at least for myself. But once you get the quarterback level, then for the individual players, it's kind of a simple formula of. So I got this stat from Peter Howdy, PA Howdy on Twitter. He has a lot of great sheets, spreadsheets, and all sorts of great models and analytics data stuff for fantasy football. Rahul, it would shock me if you've checked out some of Peter Howard's work before.
I'm sorry, Peter.
Okay. You love Peter Howard stuff because it's all spreadsheets way crazier than mine, to be honest.
I honestly might have, and I'm just terrible with remembering names. I'm sure I've seen it and not attributed the right thing.
All the rookie stuff, like for rookie receivers and data, like I get it all.
I see.
Again, PA _ Howdy or PA Howdy, one of the two. He's got a link tree there, and he's got the links to all his databases. It's all free. He's very generous that he provides so much data at no cost. Peter Howard's amazing. But also listening to some of his podcasts, and some of the things he talked about was touchdown expectations. And since 2011, it's basically the NFL average is 155 scrimmage yards per touchdown. So essentially, for every 155 scrimmage yards you gain, you're expected to score a touchdown. So I use that as a basis. So I look at, again, I'm trying to find touchdowns is players' total careers or career averages. And so I look at, for the course of their career, how many yards, and I look at rushing, and then for running backs, I'll look at rushing and receiving. Certain receivers, I might also look at rushing touchdown numbers if it's something they do commonly. Have they commonly scored rushing touchdowns, or they commonly get enough rush attempts? Typically, it's at least one rushing touchdown in their career, or 155 receiving yards or rushing yards per season. If they hit one of those two thresholds, I'll calculate a wide receiver or a tight end, not really tight end, but a wide receiver's rush touchdowns as well, and I might include them. I won't do it for most receivers, but I'll do it for those that it feels like Because for most of them, some of them it's like 0 attempts. Like, okay, clearly it's 0. They've never carried the ball once in their life. So I look at their career yards gained, divide by 155, and divide that by number of games played. That'll give me how many touchdowns on a 1-game basis, essentially, times 17, and that'll give me a number for a season. And that's that first number. That is the yards number for touchdown expectations. That's how many touchdowns they're expected to score based on their yards. The second thing I do is rushing touchdowns scored divided by number of games, and just get that for running backs. What have they actually produced on the ground? Or their receiving yards too. Do the same, or the receiving touchdowns. Like take that touchdown number, divide by number of games played, times 17, and for a whole season, this is how the way they've produced per game touchdowns. This is what you'd expect of them. So there's the expectation based on yards and expectation based on touchdown projection, and I take the average of those two numbers to give me what every player's touchdown projection should be. Now again, and I will adjust; those will get adjusted. You might not always be exactly what it is on the page. For a lot of players, it might be, but again, if there's big team changes and you've got new receivers in a different place with a different quarterback, those numbers could be skewed. So it's trying to find, again, usually adjust to the quarterback's numbers. But if they're so far out, you might have to also adjust the quarterback's numbers too for whatever.
Yeah.
And then so that's how I get these touchdown projections.
That makes a lot of sense. If you want to go into an example right here, I think one area I'd really struggle to project for the Chiefs specifically is you've got Worthy, Rice, and Brown with 7, 6, and 5 touchdowns respectively, and that's a second-year player, another one, Rashee Rice. Like, even leaving this suspension risk aside, that's a guy who's had like a span from his bye week of his rookie year to 3 games into his second season of being like super elite. And then Hollywood Brown, who's barely played with this team. Like, how did the logic go into deciding those touchdown totals there?
Yeah, so I think there might have been an artificial dropping of Rice, because of the suspension. So I think target share as well. I think initially he was higher than Worthy in target share, and then I think their touchdown numbers were identical. They were both at 7. And so I think Rice he got reduced a little bit, to make everyone else fit. I think at that point it was tough to project Jalen Royals for more than 1. I've got quite a lot here. Like they're the trick. I mean, the truth is there's a reason Patrick Mahomes is the highest touchdowns, right? So you can afford to maybe spread that out a little more. So maybe that's why none of them are higher than 7, because there are so many players factored in that it really does spread out. There's 4 running backs in there. They can go to a full 6 wide receivers. So there are some teams where maybe the threshold of including those players, okay, a lot of these guys are just going to be 0 because there's just not enough touchdowns to go around. So this is one team where there's an exception because it is the highest touchdown number. So you can afford to include more players. So, yeah, I think I know with Worthy, he was one where if you look at his scrimmage yards and his scrimmage touchdowns, I think he had 3 rushing touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
Got him for 0. So I know typically what I was doing for any players that I could give rushing touchdowns to, I take away from their receiving totals, because most of the time what happens is it's too high for the quarterbacks total. Like the total number of touchdowns, if you're projecting each player at their own projections, they usually add up to being too much for the quarterback.
Yeah.
This is one team where it was actually the opposite. And so you could afford to
spread it out, like you said.
So typically what I would do with those, when it's, there's not enough touchdowns to go around, it's okay, I'm taking away running back receiving touchdowns. I'm just giving them their rushing touchdowns. So they keep their scrimmage numbers from what I expect them to be. It's just, it's spread out, more rushing, less receiving. Kind of the opposite, where Worthy probably should actually have less than 7 receiving touchdowns, because he should, I think I was projected for 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns as well. And so I just, because Mahomes had so many, I was moving it all that towards Worthy just as a receiver. And it does feel like towards the end of the year, he was rushing less, and they trusted him more as a receiver too. So I do think there's kind of natural growth where he's going to score touchdowns through the air, so they don't feel like they're going to need to give him as many rush attempts on the ground.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they still keep doing that, and I shouldn't project him for 0 rushing touchdowns. But that's the Mahomes effect, right? There's so many receiving. Once you learn, he learns to like throw you touchdowns. He's going to do that often, I suppose, more often than what you would do it on your own because he wants the credit. Sorry. Oh, there's so many touch passes, right? It counts. It counts.
Mahomes owners love this simple trick.
Yeah, so I mean, the Chiefs is one of the rare teams where I've got, I think, 3 players tied for the team lead in scrimmage touchdowns. Pacheco with 7, Worthy with 7, and Travis Kelce with 7. Some teams it's 2 players tied, but I think this is the only team where it's 3 players tied. I think at one point I had Kareem Hunt with 7 as well, and maybe Rice. Like I think it was at one point there was 5 of them tied at 7. Like, this is a little excessive.
Man, Jamie, any teams you want to look at?
No, I did notice. So you had 2 running backs tied at 12, which was Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
I know last year, I mean, we had multiple people go to like 15, 16, 18. I know there's touchdown regression from like James Cook, Kyron Williams, stuff like that. So why, like, where did this 12 come from? Like, do you think there's going to be like a 15, 16, 17-yard or like a touchdown person just comes out of nowhere? I know it's hard to predict because touchdowns are so volatile. And
it's tough to predict who it's going to be, but there inevitably probably will be someone. And so again, I'm projecting not so much those ceiling outcomes, but the averages. So in theory, based on these averages, Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor would be the likeliest to have those 18 rushing touchdown seasons because they're the highest strictly on the rushing touchdowns. Now, you want that total touchdown, it's probably Jahmyr Gibbs too. So I've got him right now projected for 14, but if he leads the league in scrimmage yards, it admittedly probably will be higher than 14. But I'm not necessarily projecting every player at their highest range of outcomes. I'm projecting more at their middle range of outcomes, which is why it's never super high. Like in these touchdown projections, it's usually what it is. And that is, to be fair, Jamie, when I've shown this to other people, I've had that. Like, well, last year the league leader was 18 or 20. Like you've got 12 at the most, 14 at most. Like that seems low. But it's trying to project a median average.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just go down to the Washington Commanders real quick?
Sure.
I'm just interested in seeing where you have Jayden Daniels rushing and passing. And
so for Jayden Daniels, I kind of kept a lot of what he did last year. His pass attempts per start, if you remove because there was 2 games where there was the game against the Panthers. He ran on the first play of the game and got hurt and it was done for the game, right? Like it's okay. That shouldn't necessarily count as a start. And then there was, I think, week 17 or week 18, bench the starters after the first drive. So I removed those 2, and if the rate he was passing at would have been 528 pass attempts. So that's how I got that number to start. He threw for 5.2% touchdown rate last year. I keep comparing Jayden Daniels to Lamar Jackson, and his career average is above 6. So I think Daniels 5.2 is actually something he could reproduce. Like that could be his career average. So I just kept it there. I didn't adjust it like I did for maybe some other second-year quarterbacks. But 5.2% of 528 is 27 passing touchdowns. I think if anywhere I increased his efficiency was rushing. I think when I calculated based on his yards per game last year and expectation, they were essentially at like 6 or 7. I think based on 7 games I think based on his total numbers last year, it was 6. But again, if you remove the 2 games where he barely played and counted only as 15 starts, it ended up being 8. So I think that's where I went to that. So that's how I get 27 passing touchdowns and 8 rushing touchdowns, which I know I went and I calculated all the touchdown numbers, 4 points per pass, 6 points per rushing touchdown, and Jayden Daniels ended up 3rd just on touchdown scoring behind.
How did you get
the obvious 2, Lamar and Josh Allen.
So how did you get the 4 touchdowns for Michael Gallup? And I know he took a year off, he retired, now he's unretired. Do you think he's going to get snaps over Noah Brown? KJ Osborne.
Well, and this, combined with his target share as well, throughout his career, Michael Gallup scored more touchdowns. It was a better touchdown scorer and a better yards producer than KJ Osborne and Noah Brown. I know at their career average target share, Gallup was at 16%, whereas KJ Osborne down at 12.5, Noah Brown at 9.5. Now, 17.5 last year in this offense, but they've added 3 new receivers, Deebo Samuel, Gallup, and Osborne, who have traditionally been better target share earners than Noah Brown. So I think it's just trusting the history that even though he retired for a year, Gallup was an incredible producer when he played. He was a better producer than Brown and KJ Osborne. So I think just the fact that he had done it at that level before, he was the guy that was going to be third in those receivers among touchdowns.
And what made you cut Terry McLaurin's touchdowns from last year in half?
That's an interesting one, yeah.
13 or 14 last year.
And you know what? And maybe that's where Gallup and Osborne are too high. But yeah, I mean, it's like a similar case to James Cook. I think he's going from 18 to 8. Originally, I wasn't going to cut it by that much, but essentially, I'm just going off, again, based on the yard. Like, here's the thing. McLaurin, for years, underproduced his touchdowns.
Yeah.
He was always, great on the yards, but the touchdowns weren't there. Last year, it was the opposite, because his yards stayed about the same. He greatly overproduced it. So returning again to an average based on how he's produced through his career, I think it might have been 7. Now I think Gallup was closer to 5 or 6. So I ended up manually reducing a lot of these players again to make it fit to the quarterback's 27 touchdowns.
Yeah. So I know it's Jayden Daniels' second year. He only played 1. But McLaurin, if you look at his past touchdowns, with the horrible quarterback play, now do you consider that now that he does have Daniels again for a second year?
Yeah, it did occur to me to kind of think about that, Jamie. Of let's just count McLaurin from last year. What would if I think he overproduced his touchdown numbers, but let's say what his expected touchdown numbers, it was probably higher than what it's been. But back to my whole point, I want as large a sample size as possible, so I didn't artificially just say I'm going to take 1 year from him. I could have, but I just chose to, whenever I could always just take a player's career average. I'm pulling up my page right now for what I had McLaurin at. So throughout his career, it's funny, it's not that much different, but 7.21 would be his yards expectation for touchdowns in a season. Now his actual production is 6.66, and that's including last year's, right? That boosted significantly because in previous years it hadn't been that high, which gives 6.95. So it was 7. I think in order to make everything fit at 27, I think there's a lot of players I just rounded down. Like Deebo was at 5.55. That's typically rounded up to 6, but just rounded down to 5. So it was 6 or 7 based kind of on not on a rounding error, but just based on how you're rounding down. Because what I had for Gallup was again 4.46. 4.77 for his yards expectation, 4.15 for touchdown production, whereas Osborne's at, hey, I love this band, 311 for his yards expectation, 4.06 for the touchdown. So Osborne's an example of someone who's overproduced his touchdown numbers by almost a full touchdown per season. So he's a weird case where it was 3.58, so again, you're rounding down to 3. And that kind of just leaves Noah Brown out because, again, he's had 2 most recent kind of seasons where he's been productive, but aside from that, he hadn't been. So he ends up at 1.85, 2.52 for his yards. So he's been a good yards producer, but 1.17 for his touchdown. A bit of a difference. And I was going to get to some of the larger differences of players. There's some that are quite extreme, actually, between those 2 numbers. But that's how I got that. I know, Rahul, you wanted to talk more about Trevor Lawrence. Jamie, did I answer your question correctly?
Yeah, perfectly. Right. Thank you.
So, you're welcome. Well, thank you for asking. So, AFC South. All right. So, So I guess with Lawrence, he was an example of someone where I wrote it down. His rookie season, he had a 2% touchdown rate. So it drops his career average to 3.4. If you remove that rookie season, his career average is 3.9. So a half percentage more is significant enough that we can chalk that up to Urban Meyer, right? So there will sometimes be that with the younger quarterbacks where I might remove their rookie season if it was really horrible and it like every other year is a lot better. Let's maybe just disregard that rookie season because that's not
Makes sense.
It's not as realistic. As they get older, and I used to take out Joe Burrow's rookie season, but now he's projected at 35 touchdowns, and that's including his rookie season, his career average. So like eventually they'll have enough seasons and that'll phase out, and that rookie season won't impact as much. But while there's still few seasons, it does. So for Lawrence, it was a guy that I increased it. It honestly ended up being, I think, 1 touchdown difference. Like it really wasn't. It was 1 or 2 touchdowns. Like it really didn't increase it by that much. But every other year of his career, he's been between 3.7 and 4.3%. So 3.9 is right in that range. So I kept his career average pass attempts per start 33.9, so 576 pass attempts. 3.9% is 22 passing touchdowns.
Sorry, just taking a second to digest it. I guess maybe the 3.9% is where it might make sense to start because he's always been between those. But I'd be very curious, like where he ranks amongst your projections, like where he ranks amongst the quarterbacks with like a 3.9% touchdown to pass attempt ratio. Because even just looking at the examples, like Cam Ward is at 4% rookie first round average. So I guess that's where I'd maybe want to push back on that projection, or like I understand it's like median projections, but do you think that's one where you might be undershooting what it could be?
Potentially, and maybe that's the Travis Hunter effect, right? Because his target share was pretty high, but as you see here, Hunter only has 4 touchdowns.
Yeah,
in my projection, and that was one where the rookies are always left. So I would have projected the rest of this team. I would have calculated all those players, and was left with 4 over at the end, and that's like what I put towards Travis Hunter. That was probably like it might have been reducing Etienne receiving touchdown or transitioning into a rushing touchdown. Bashal Tootin was tough. Like that was more for the rookies. I was kind of trying to always keep them intact, especially when it came to the rushing, the running backs kind of starting Cam Scatterboot down because those guys, I think most of them had 0 receiving touchdowns. I think almost everyone lower here either had 0 receiving or 0 rushing. It was the Harvey and higher, like those top 4 guys like that. I attributed both to. So for a lot of the rookies at running back, I tried to keep it simple and keep it to what either they're in rushing or in receiving, not in both necessarily. So that's why I went into here. Even though Tootin is a pass catcher, I still expect if anyone's going to score receiving touchdowns on this team for this year, it's going to be Etienne. I only have him with 1 because part of it is Brian Thomas takes up not quite half, but almost half of Trevor Lawrence's touchdowns. Based on what he earned last year, I expect him to repeat that. That could be the mistake, right? Like with that, just an outlier season. It just happened so early that we don't know it's an outlier season. But I'll operate as if what we saw from Brian Thomas Jr. last year wasn't a mirage, and it was the real thing.
Yeah,
and that what we've seen from Lawrence has been a real thing. It's not a mirage. He isn't some promised prince that's just going to elevate. Like I'm projecting him to just continue to stay what he's been. Whereas, and this is where I guess I sort of took the coaching change into account by removing the Urban Meyer season, but maybe do you also throw out the Peterson? It's a totally new era for Trevor Lawrence.
I don't want to.
Wouldn't know where to actually either. Maybe just go higher than what his highest season had been, right? If his highest season is 4.3, just go to 4.4. I've definitely done that with the target share a lot. Just okay, let me just go 1% lower than his lowest of his career, and that if a guy's really high and I need to reduce him, let's just go to make this to the lowest season of his career. That a lot with the target shares, not quite as much with the touchdowns.
Yeah, I guess even to thought exercise that one, I'd love to. If you have like the thinking behind, like I'm looking at Baker Mayfield like on my screen right now, who you have at 5%, and I'm wondering if that's where, like, I wonder what it was for Baker last year. I'm sounding like the biggest Liam Cohen glazer in the world right here, but I'm like very curious as to like, can you take Baker Mayfield, who may arguably have had a similar career trajectory, like middling years, and then suddenly is found in the years like 5 and 6 of his career, like touchdown efficiency. So I'm wondering if that's like a case to make,
So to your credit, last year he had a 7.2%. It was the highest in his career for Baker Mayfield. His next highest season though was as a rookie at 5.6. So he showed it immediately. The year he split between Carolina and Tampa, it was 3%.
Yeah.
Every other year though, it's been 4% or higher.
I see.
So he was already at a lot higher level than Trevor, and it wasn't now. Could Trevor have that outlier? He could have a 7% touchdown season with Cohen, maybe. I think if he gets an elevation, I don't think it'll be quite that high. It'll be maybe towards where Baker is before that in his career. This is Liam Cohen helps Trevor get to 5%, 5.5%. That could be the kind of leap I could foresee. But I obviously didn't project that. I projected no leap at all. And this is back to where I'm more about the players than the coach, right? Like I'm not seeing the coaching changes being a big thing. Like this is who Lawrence has been as a player. This is where I'm going to expect him to be. Maybe that's the part of the flaw in my system is that I didn't put enough. Again, like the Vikings target share for running backs was an example where I used the coach. Right? Really do too much of that. Again, other than excluding Urban Meyer's season, right? Like, this horrible coach, I'll exclude that season from this quarterback and won't punish him. Outside of little things like that, I really didn't look too much into coaching. And that was one of your first questions, like, how do you take coaching?
Yeah.
I guess I don't. That's the short answer. So maybe I need to figure out a way to.
No, I'm sure. I mean, my intention isn't to like poke holes in the process, and this is something to like talk about next week when we go into like how projections go into your rankings, because when I look at these numbers, it's like where can I like agree, yes, but what maybe sticks out a little more is like where do I disagree, like in terms of my rankings, in terms of like thinking this offense is going to take like a major step forward. But it also gives me kind of like that, because I wouldn't have guessed that Trevor Lawrence's career touchdown average like is between like such a low rate and even like much lower than what Baker Mayfield has produced. And maybe that's something I'm not really that's something that should like temper my like expectations for really how high this could go. Because even if I used 5% there, it's realistically adding another like 4 to 5 passing touchdowns, and that actually might, even at that like better outcome, that's maybe still not meeting where like my rankings would have some of these players implied to be. So I think it's a great exercise, and I definitely see like the median outcome, and I'm excited for the follow up for sure.
So 5% touchdown rate for Lawrence at 576 pass attempts is 29 touchdowns. So like that would be a 7 touchdown bump. Like that would, we start getting into those 5%. That's where it definitely could bump.
Yeah.
I guess even a 4.5% touchdown rate, like that increases to maybe that 25 touchdowns. Yeah. So.
Do you mind real quick scrolling down to the Patriots?
Yeah. New England.
Oh.
All right. So
court flashbacks here.
So we've got Travion Henderson leading them in scrimmage touchdowns to start with, 7. Ramondre is next with 6, because I do think they're going to split the sort of goal line touchdown-esque role. Maybe I'm wrong, but it does feel. I know we recently had Joe Bond's been doing great with these interviews with different people who report at teams who are at like president training camps, practices. Like for Washington Commanders, for instance, he had George Carmi on, and George, I know he's a season ticket holder, and he goes to every Commanders home game, tries to go to every practice, training camp he can. So Joe's finding people that are really connected, and the Patriots. I encourage people to go check out that episode. But one thing he mentioned was Stevenson still seems like he's getting more carries than Henderson, where Henderson's really showing up more as a receiver. But it doesn't look like Henderson's just going to get immediately all the carries. Like Stevenson is
Mhm.
going to figure prominently still. And that's kind of how I've projected it the whole time with touchdowns. I
Same.
thought Stevenson was going to come close to Henderson. I'm still leaning towards the rookie. And again, maybe that's just me putting the rookie just because I think I had Ramondre pretty much projected where his career average had been. I think about 6 scrimmage touchdowns is what you expect from him. For Travion, it was okay, just go higher than Stevenson. And that's maybe the expectation. For some of these, it's as simple as that. Couldn't get more than 1 receiving touchdown each. Now, I kept Drake May's, kind of like what I did with Daniels. I just kept his pass rate from last year. I think I upped his pass attempts to match. I think I treated May and Daniels the same way because Drake May had 2 games where he played, but they're essentially zeros. They were like the last week of the season. Opening drive, he handed it off 3 times and they benched him. He didn't even throw it. It counts as a game, right? So I think I projected May. Everything I did for him was at 10 starts instead of 12 starts. So I upped his pass attempts higher. Pass attempts per 10 starts is 549 for a whole season as opposed to whatever it was if you just counted at 12 starts. So I upped May for those extents, but I kept his touchdown rate the same. And that's how I got 24 touchdowns for him. But again, keeping his average career, what he scored last year, 4.4% touchdown rate.
Okay, so rushing touchdowns last year, Drake May was at 4, right?
I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
I thought it was less. I thought one of the things was I think he only scored 2, but over the course of
put it back.
I
can actually look that up right now.
Okay, so Drake May rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns on 421 yards. But again,
the thing with me though, you got to remember the coaching, right? They didn't have many designed runs. Actually, Drake May had the most rushing yards in the league that were scrambles, right? So then I go back and look at what coach was it Josh McDaniels? He had Cam Newton, I think, had 11 touchdowns. And they used to run a whole bunch of design runs for Cam Newton, which got him a lot of touchdowns. Do you think that could be something this year that can boost Drake May up to maybe 6 or 7 rushing touchdowns? Now, I'm not saying like he's not going to get 11 like Cam Newton did.
Well, yeah,
but something maybe like along the lines of 6 or 7.
Because Cam Newton was scoring 11 touchdowns without Josh McDaniels. So that wasn't really a Josh McDaniels thing. That's more just a Cam Newton thing, right? So I don't know that. I know because Josh Allen and Cam Newton are very similar in that. Like they will just truck through and get these rushing touchdowns. And it seems like May's closest comparable is Josh Allen. I know you've really pushed that a lot, JB, that he seems similar. I've pushed back. I don't quite see Josh Allen. I see more Daniel Jones. And I think it wouldn't shock me if Drake May is 3rd in the league in rushing yards among quarterbacks, but finishes still like 7th in rushing touchdowns. That's kind of how I'm projecting here with only 4. I think I remember counting he was 7th among quarterbacks in rushing touchdowns. So there's still others that I am projecting higher. So he could take the step up. I'm basing it off of the 420. And again, I gave May the benefit of the doubt and kind of projected it over 10 games. 42 rushing yards per game and 2 touchdowns per 10 games. Essentially, you extrapolate all that out. Again, for the yards expectation for 155, and then it essentially gave me 4 touchdowns as his outcome was. So that's why I went with 4. Which there's not a lot of quarterbacks I'm going higher than 3. To be fair to him. But the one thing that doesn't show is the rushing yards. And I think that's where I more aggressively ranked Drake May. He'd be higher in rushing yards than rushing touchdowns.
And where do you have Keyshawn Boutte on target share? I'd be interested to see that real quick.
Yeah.
I just drafted him today for the first time ever.
So Boutte I've got as the 5th wide receiver in target share at 7.4%.
7.4. Okay, I like that.
Which is about 2% lower than his career average. Call it the Stephon Diggs effect, because even Diggs himself, he's not hitting his career average. None of these Patriots players are. I think part of the reason is Diggs' presence is just it commands so much. So yeah, Booty took a step up last year. He went from 4% as a rookie to 15%. But I do think it's going to drop, and it'll be more towards the middle, but even closer to what it was as a rookie because they didn't have Stephon Diggs to contend with last year, and that I think is a huge change.
So yeah, I took him today in the Battle of the Sexes tournament with my second last pick, and then with my last pick, I was debating between Elijah Moore and Jalen Naylor. So which one would you have picked going off of fantasy projections?
Okay, so Elijah Moore at 9.5% target share. I'm assuming Jalen Naylor is less than that. Let me look. Yeah, Naylor is 5.8. So almost not
even
quite
with
half.
Addison going to be out those 3 games. Do you think that would?
Yeah,
help?
I didn't really change much for Addison. I dropped him a little bit. I dropped him 1% lower than his original target share was, but it didn't really raise many guys that much higher. Like Naylor's about just over 1% higher than his career average, so I already raised him a little bit, but it's lower than it was last year, to be fair. But last year Hawkinson only had 17.8%. That's something I expect to raise closer to his average of 19.3 or even higher than that. So yeah, I would say it's Elijah Moore.
Yeah,
but I had 3 touchdowns for Elijah Moore. Yeah, I think Naylor's less than that.
And 1. He has 1.
So the reason I took those 2 guys at the very end, and I took Booty, I just wanted him. And my last pick, I was debating between Elijah Moore and Naylor for my team name. Did I want to name it Give Me More Booty or Naylor Booty?
I mean, a rose by any other name is still a stupid flower, so you can do whatever you want. I know. According to my projections, Elijah Moore is the pick.
All right, I just thought it was Booty Naylor. So I thought that was a funnier name. So I went with Naylor over Give Me More Booty.
And maybe
either way.
Maybe he should have maybe he should be closer to the 8% he had last year. But he would still be lower than Elijah Moore, and he still wouldn't have as many touchdowns. So.
Yeah, because I figured with my last pick, I already had Booty, and Naylor, we're gonna have Addison out a couple 3 games. Shakur is going to be out probably first 2-3 weeks, right? Because high ankle sprains take a while. So I could have went either way. I just went with the funnier team name.
Okay. Well, and to be fair, it's a bet. Is Battle of the Sexes the best ball, Jamie?
Yeah. Yes, best ball.
Naylor's probably a more volatile. Could have. I mean, we saw it last year, right? These just random touchdown games, but that was with a different quarterback. To be fair, Elijah Moore just profiles more as a safer bet. He's probably going to be in line for a lot more targets if Khalil Shakir misses time with his high ankle sprain. Elijah Moore might project best as the slot receiver to replace Shakir specifically. That doesn't. Shakir only had 4 touchdowns last year on 100 targets, so that's not a high upside role.
So I see Fantasy Football Universe, awesome. I love them. I'm in their Discord.
Yeah, you were on their show recently.
Yes. He says Elijah Moore. Now, is that because for fantasy reasons or for the funnier team name? Because I do Give Me More Booty.
Well, again,
I thought Booty Naylor was kind of funny too.
I'm going with Booty Naylor.
Right? Those are just names and words. The numbers say, in theory, Moore has the higher projectable median outcome. But with best ball last pick, you don't really worry about median outcome. You're going for higher upside. So honestly, from that perspective, I actually think Naylor's the best pick. So
all right, cool. Well, I didn't really draft them off of what they were going to do in fantasy, just because it's a fun charity league.
It's a fantasy team. Why would you?
Yeah.
No, I get it. I mean, it's a charity tournament. It's your last pick too, right? You've probably put a lot more effort and research into the roster construction at the start, to where your last pick, you can just take a fun shot. So, and I mean, Fantasy Football Universe,
shots where they come.
Diggs most slept on wide receiver 1 this season. That could be, and I have raised him in projections a little bit towards the end. He was lower for me, and I've accepted I was too low on him. And
I think a lot of
Jason
people
I agree. Jamie is a top-notch analyst.
No, well, he's
the
being
Naylor booty thing is
that's
proven.
one of my buddies, but he's being sarcastic. But I know you guys think I'm a top notch.
I'm being serious. I think you're pretty great.
I think Diggs. I think Diggs, just with that comment, I feel like he's a player who's not gotten that bump of having like positive injury news over the offseason. Like a lot of people just like went into like May or June thinking like he's probably gonna be like closer to Ayuk, like miss like maybe Pup, and then he's looking great so far and hasn't really had that bump up.
I've only had him at 4 touchdowns. I think it's that leads the team in receiving touchdowns at 4. So like it's no one on this team is really getting a high touchdown number. But yeah, the target share I've been more willing to just keep raising it. But yeah, maybe I'm still too low on Diggs. So even he's underrated to me.
Well, Diggs for me, he's more of a PPR guy. I don't see a lot of touchdowns from him.
Yeah, and that's why I've kind of kept him at that 4, but I've been raising the target share progressively. Now, one thing I want to talk about are the players with the largest differences. I already mentioned a couple, but these are ones where the differences are really extreme between like their expected touchdowns and what they produce. But there's 2 players at the extreme ends of it, and I want to know what you guys think dynasty-wise for them when we take away this information. So, starting with the NFC North. We're going to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs. So I've already mentioned Jahmyr Gibbs. My projected scrimmage touchdown leader with 14. As you see here, it's 11. It's 311. Love that band. 11 on the ground and 3 through the air. Now, it's especially his rushing touchdown number that is quite extreme. So his yards expectation through 2 seasons is 8.08 touchdowns per season based on his yards. Now, per game, he's actually scored 13.81 touchdowns over the course of a 17-game season. So almost essentially at 14 touchdowns. Like that's overproducing it by almost 6, 5.73. It's the largest disparity between expectation and touchdowns that I have with any players. And at first, I was wondering if it was going to be in the opposite direction, like someone who's so underproduced. And we had a couple that were high, but none at 5.73. Not even at 5 touchdowns, let alone almost at 6. But, yards expectation only goes so far. If a player is really good at scoring touchdowns, they'll just year over year continue to outproduce it. So that's why I've got Gibbs still as the highest scrimmage touchdown player, because he's shown the capacity to be this player that can just score touchdowns. He's part of an offense that scores pretty well. 28 passing touchdowns, 21 rushing. I think the Lions, if I look at their team leaders,
I think
they're tied for 4th
in
in touchdowns in the league. So I also think it's an offense that allows him to score a lot of touchdowns too. Sorry, Jamie?
Gibbs last year had 20 total touchdowns?
Yeah, so 14 again. 14 is his median outcome, which is a crazy outcome, but like again, part of it is the difference of what he's expected, right? So okay, if he's expected at 8.08, but he's actually produced 13.81, well, what's that average? It's right around 11. And that's where he has up with 11 rushing touchdowns. Now, it's funny because I can't remember where I wrote this down. Oh, yeah. For receiving, his yards receiving is 2.86. His actual touchdown production is 2.66. So he's actually underproduced slightly by 0.2. 0.2 touchdowns over a 17-game season. He's actually underproduced his receiving touchdowns. So, but they were pretty identical to being just under 3, which is why I gave him 3 receiving touchdowns. So it's funny that was really close. The receiving numbers are kind of in line. What he based on his receiving yards, he's basically scoring the amount of touchdowns he should be, but he's just massively overproducing at rushing touchdowns. He's not the only running back like that, but he's the most extreme case of the running back.
Now, with Montgomery, are you putting that 8 or 9 touchdowns for a whole season, or are you expecting him to miss half a season?
No, when has David Montgomery missed half a season?
The thing is, like the last
injury prone.
years,
I don't think he's
the last 2 years he played 14 games.
That's more than half
14
a season.
games.
Half a season is 7 games.
12 and 13 touchdowns. So if you're putting him at 8, or 9, that would mean he would miss another 3-4 games. So
Okay, you're
I
thinking
just
the
think like
opposite.
ever since he was on the Lions, he scored 13 touchdowns each year in 14 games. So if he does play a full season, I would imagine that would go up. But if you're expecting him to miss another 4 or 5 games, that would go down.
So, and you're right, based on his Lions career. But again, I'm looking at players' whole career. So those 4 seasons with the Bears, I am taking that into account with this number. Which I feel I would, if he was the lead back in Detroit, I might be hesitant to do that. And I might just focus on what he's done with Detroit. But I'm more willing to think he's going to reduce his touchdowns than Gibbs will. So far, Gibbs through 2 years, he's just been this. Whereas we've seen times where Montgomery hasn't been on a worse offense, to be fair. So maybe you're right. Maybe Montgomery is too low. I know, like, based on his touchdowns, I think he ends up being like running back 22 in my redraft rankings. He might go up to his, if I increase his touchdowns, he might enter into like the top 20, like 17, 16, something like that. I don't know if I'm going to quite project him at what he did last year necessarily, 12 and 13 in the past 2 years, even though those were just 14-game seasons. So he definitely. Also, I am projecting him for a receiving touchdown, which he has not done yet with Detroit.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a mistake too. Maybe I need to remove the receiving touchdown, just give him 9 rushing touchdowns.
And then give
Jameson. I'll make a note of this. Sorry.
Yeah, you could move that Montgomery receiving touchdown to Jameson Williams and give him 5.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like, Jameson gets hurt by, his rookies. Problem with his rookie year was he had 1 touchdown in 6 games. So like that, that's not so horrible, but then just didn't really do much also as a second year. So while last year was good, again, looking at his career average, ends up being just 4. So now maybe 1 touchdown difference between Williams and Patrick, like that's maybe something. Maybe you're right, Jamie. Maybe I need to kind of revise these Lions touchdowns. So I'll look at Montgomery. I'll look at, maybe you're right. Maybe that is where you attribute. Because my first thought is just give it to Montgomery rushing, like take away the receiving touchdown, the rushing. But then you also do need to add a receiving touchdown to get to that 28. So yeah, maybe Williams is the answer there. Maybe you're right, Jamie. Thank you. And again, I know, Rahul, you mentioned earlier you didn't want to pick apart, but I love this. I love like having you guys like look through it. Okay, what am I missing? Like, because I've gone through and projected, but maybe I'm not looking at something, or I'm ignoring a player. I'm not completely ignoring because they're on the sheet, but I'm understating a player, underestimating.
I guess that example was a really good one because, like, I understand that you're doing this for like median projections, and I would think like 8 or 9 touchdowns David Montgomery seems like a median projection. But then that's one where, what if the median is the Lions are like a top 5 offense that, has, the most rushing touchdowns in the NFL, like you're a better defense. Like, what if that's the median? I guess I'm just like trying to figure out like how you bet. It's this is a complicated process that your how you do it makes it very like methodical, and yeah, I don't know.
And I think the one thing with Montgomery too, that he'll be hurt in these projections because he is someone, especially with the Lions. Like, if I was to just isolate his time with the Lions, he's probably overproducing his touchdown numbers like Gibbs. And I'm just calculating that right now.
Yeah.
His yards expectation 2 years for the Lions is 7 touchdowns over a 17-game season.
Which exactly in line with like your projections. And I like is that where like when we look at projections or people like try to build projections, you have to like apply. I mean, you can nitpick everything, I'm sure, with time. Like, time is the constraint.
I just calculated his touchdown scoring for, like, again, because it's 13 and 12 on 14 games. So extrapolated to a 17-game season, he's basically scoring 15 touchdowns per 17 games, like 25 over 28, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't project it at 15. I probably also wouldn't project it at 7. Like, so what is the? That's what it's 11 a sentence. So 22-11. Yeah. So maybe right now he's at 9 scrimmage touchdowns. Maybe that should be in double digits, to be fair. So I'll have to, maybe this is okay. So I've made a note of this. I'll review the Giants target share or Jets target share. Sorry, I'll review the
I guess what like
Lions touchdowns too.
I guess one is like maybe a layer to apply is like look then at like who you expect to be like the top 5 scoring units, bottom 5 like scoring units, because I think it's a median projection, right? And like at some like one thing to add could be like, okay, let's look at the extremes, maybe a little more like case by case basis. Like this is like a great example of that, right?
True. Yeah. Like again, do you? And I tend to default to just I want as large a sample size as possible. That's why I look at players' careers, not just their time on one team. And but this is maybe showing the flaw of that too, right? Like it maybe works in a lot of cases. This is one where it's been it was night and day difference between Chicago and Detroit that maybe instead of trying to find the bridge between the two, maybe I should lean more towards the Detroit side, even if it's half the sample size. It's only 2 seasons compared to 4. So I think that's also where he gets hurt. That it's only 28 games, but David Montgomery's played 60 games, right? So like, so much more that Chicago sample size does loom large here. So Gibbs and Montgomery would be examples of just overproducing their touchdowns with the Lions. But that's the Lions have shown that's who they are. So I'm comfortable again projecting Gibbs there to continue. Now we're going to talk about the player who's underperformed, like underperformed by a ridiculous number. Puka Nacua. So looking at his, first off, what do I have his touchdown number? I have him at 8 receiving touchdowns. It's funny. We're just looking at Rams Lions at the same number of passing touchdowns, 28. 8 for Nacua, which is a huge jump on his career numbers because he is underproduced by crazy. Based on the yards expectation for the last 2 seasons, Puka Nacua should have 9.7 touchdowns for a 17-game season. So we're almost at 10 touchdowns per year. He's actually only produced 5.46 touchdowns per 17 games. That's a minus 4.24 difference. It's other than Gibbs in the opposite direction, it's the highest mark I came across in terms of difference. But I've seen a lot of players, the 3 and 4 number disparities. Most of the time, it's overshooting because of touchdowns. It seems like it's so easy for a random player to just get a touchdown out of nowhere, even though they're barely getting yards. Than it is. There's a lot more examples of that at a higher level than there are of players that are just grossly underproducing their touchdowns year over year. Nacua again at 4.24. The next, most of the differences are overproduction. The next highest, I guess, in the similar case to Nacua for a receiving guy like that. Where did I write it down? Did not write it down here, but I remember it's Trey McBride and
Chris Olave. Yeah.
Oh, I wrote that down on the show sheet. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's Trey McBride underperformed by 2.92 touchdowns over 17 games, and Chris Olave very close at 2.85.
Yeah. So whereas outside of Gibbs and Nacua, there are players. So Jalen McMillan overproducing his touchdowns by 4.11 in his rookie season. A.T. Perry, his short time in the NFL, 4.1 overproducing touchdowns. Derrick Henry has overproduced his touchdown numbers for his career by 4.04 touchdowns per game. Even the ones I didn't put on the sheet that I can remember. Jordan Addison is like 3.97 overproducing his touchdowns. I think we have 2 Bengals overproducing by 3 touchdowns. Ja'Marr Chase and Andre Yoshivas. But underproducing by 3 touchdowns, we really only have 2 examples. One is Puka Nacua. The other is Sincere McCormick, who hasn't scored a touchdown. That's the only reason, because he has 0. He's, the 5 games he played last year with the Raiders, based on the yards, if you took that for a whole season, he should score 4 touchdowns. But he scored 0 in that span, so it's minus 4.01. That's the only reason he's this high is because he has 0. And it's that extreme of he got that many yards in just that small sample size that on a per game basis, it looks like it's a massive underproduction. I mean, I think I put McCormick at 2, actually, and that's where I was going to go next. But all to say with Nacua is that because he's underproduced it by so much, I'm willing to. It's positivity both ways, right? Oh, Gibbs keeps overproducing. I expect him to continue to overproduce. With Nacua, part of it is also like, who else on the team do you project to have touchdowns? Because no one else really is there. The next highest receiving touchdown is Tyler Higbee at 3. So it also made it easy to just assume Nacua is going to hit closer to where he should from a yards expectation. At some season that's going to happen. I'm projecting it here. I mean, even still, 8 touchdowns is still underproducing what should be 10 based on the yards he's produced so far in his career. But yeah, so I guess the quick Dynasty take is I still have Nacua ranked higher in Dynasty than Gibbs. Because I think because these numbers are, okay, Nacua is underproduced by so much and Gibbs is overproduced by so much, the touchdown regression, sort of everything towards the average, eventually would settle things out. And there'll be a season 1 year where Nacua and Gibbs will be close in touchdowns. But am I banking that too much? And because of this, should we actually be ranking Gibbs ahead of Puka in Dynasty? Because that's something that, since I've done this, I've gone to, okay, not just redraft rankings, but how does this affect Dynasty rankings? And that's one I've struggled with because I have had Puka just behind Neighbors, but ahead of Bijan and Gibbs. Now, after seeing this, I'm wondering, should we actually be lower on Puka in Dynasty because of that? Because he's so chronically underproducing by a crazy amount, is that maybe just he's not a good touchdown scorer? And we should be lower for that. So I don't know what your guys' take is on this.
All right. I kind of hear that and think that Puka has finished like wide receiver 7 in points per game, and it's maybe higher in PPR. That's half PPR without those touchdowns. And
I think
that
last year in full PPR, I think he was wide receiver 3 in points per game.
Yeah, so it just like
tied for like second each. Like it was, yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like one of those. I mean, that fills me with confidence in Puka's profile and like makes me think like, those wide like 20-point per game seasons are certainly within his ceiling, even at like an average wide receiver touchdown mark. Like eight doesn't like scream off the page, and maybe he's never going to be like a Ja'Marr Chase like type, like a Mike Evans, like those type of like high touchdown scoring wide receivers, but even just like a bump up to 8 would, with his like yard and catch performance, that kind of puts him in like an elite tier. So that's a hard one. I mean, you're also baking position into that one, but to leave like position aside of that discussion, my confidence is reinforced in Puka, like seeing those kind of stats.
And JB, I don't know how you feel about them in Dynasty, Puka and Gibbs specifically.
I think you're on mute.
So silent that the difference is so vast, like it's a chasm. You can't even hear from one end to the other.
So Puka,
or you know what? It was a silent film. I should have gone with that. It was a silent film that Jamie was showing us.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jamie.
I was gonna say Puka's not much of a touchdown guy. So when people were saying, "Oh, Adams is gonna come in and take away from Puka's value," no, it's not gonna happen because Adams is gonna get his touchdowns. So I can see more Adams touchdowns. I could probably boost it up to 11 and then put Puka at 6 because even last year, Puka played 11 games. He only had 3. The year before, I believe he had 6 in a full season.
I think it was something like that.
So,
yeah,
I mean, average. I mean, wouldn't you put that at least 5? But I mean, I still think he still gets about 4 to 6 at least.
Again,
but
part of my calculation though is also again the yards expectation, because he's just been so underproducing. Again, part of it is I think it comes back to, in a positive way for him, that the touchdowns match the yards, because based on his yards, he should have scored a lot more than that.
Yeah, he's more of the PPR guy. So like, I think he's going to be fine in receptions and yards, but just for touchdowns, I still can't put him over 5 or 6. In my opinion.
That's fair.
Adams double digits, hands down. Like that dude's gonna be eating touchdowns.
He had 8 with the Raiders a couple years ago, so it's not like he always gets double-digit touchdowns. And there was definitely a year where he was at his peak and he only scored like 6. Now he missed a month with a broken foot, but he had 0 touchdowns when he broke his foot. Like it was all like end of season, a couple game stretch, and he suddenly started to score them. That was a weird year. But let's. Anyway, I get nightmares as a Packers fan in that game. Wait, we let Jordan Howard score again? Oh no. But I think, to reiterate what you were saying, Rahul, it does give me more confidence. Like it made me hesitate for a little, like, should I have Puka this high in Dynasty? But it does give me confidence to think that eventually, I think the touchdowns will be there. I don't think he's going to continue to underproduce at this rate. Now, it seems like he's going to be someone who's going to underproduce for his whole career, just maybe not by 4 touchdowns per season. Like at least get to like the 2 range where McBride and Olave are, right? Like 2.8 range. Like I think he can at least reduce it a little bit. But yes, that's there. One last thing I want to talk about was tie it all back to the rookie, right? Tie it back to Ashton Jeanty. So how did I get Ashton Jeanty's touchdown number? So I got him at 12 scrimmage touchdowns, which again, Gibbs is the leader among running backs at 14. So like 12 is up there. So based on the touchdown projections, it makes Jeanty seem worthy of the first round redraft pick that he's going in 1 QB leagues. So the first thing I did actually was look at the other running backs. And what are their individual projections? It was Raheem Mostert at 5, Sincere McCormick at 2, and again that comes from I know where the 2 comes from. It's the 4.01 expectation for touchdowns, 0 for the actual production. So the average is just divide 4.01 by 2, and it's essentially 2. So that's where that number came from. And then Zamir White was at 1.43. So initially it had Mostert at 5 rushing touchdowns, McCormick at 2, White at 1. I also do this thing where once I do the expectation of touchdowns, I also add a third one just to see if there's a mass difference, and it's range of outcomes. And it's the median range of outcomes they've actually scored in their career. So that's not a per game. So like the players who have been injured, they get hurt with that one because it is counted over, like it's not going per game. So if you miss games, like you're being counted the same as someone who played a full season. So like it does take that one maybe takes more into account like players who are constantly injured. It also, if you have a massive touchdown season, like Raheem Mostert did that one season with 22, it boosts that median actual range that you scored. Based on that third category, I think Mostert was up at like 6 touchdowns or something. So I decided I was going to start there as a basis for Jeanty with 6 rushing touchdowns, like Mostert at the higher end of his projection, essentially. But then I removed 1 touchdown from Mostert and 1 from McCormick. That went from 6 to 8. And that's how I got the 8 rushing touchdowns for Jeanty. With receiving, I projected the players. Again, I projected Geno Smith. Here we have, he had 3.99 pass attempts per start over his career, which leads to 544 pass attempts. His career average touchdown rate is exactly 4%. With Seattle, it was 4.3. And Geno Smith in Seattle seemed like a whole different quarterback than anywhere else. So as you can see here, 4.3 with Seattle. I kind of gave it obvious. I kept his touchdown rate from Seattle instead of his average. It literally made 1 touchdown difference. I think with 4%, it would have been 21.75. So I would have rounded up to 22 touchdowns. Instead, it's 23.38. So that ultimately made 1 touchdown a difference. But anyway, that's how you get 23 passing touchdowns. I projected every player at where their average was. Didn't have Beck, obviously, because he's a rookie, and didn't have Jeanty. So I was left with 6 touchdowns. So yeah, I had 17 based on the players what they scored on their own. And then with 6 left, I thought, okay, do I evenly distribute it between Jeanty and Besh? And I've been fading Besh, so I thought, no, I'm going to double Jeanty over Besh with 4 receiving touchdowns for Jeanty, 2 with Besh, which, to be fair, if you go back to the target share, ties into the fact that I have Jack Besh down at 7.9% target share, and the Raiders running backs at like 20.6, with a lot of that going to Jeanty. So I felt comfortable with that kind of split between the 2 of these. And that leads to 12 touchdowns projected for Ashton Jeanty. I know the rookies are the tough ones, but how do you think that's a sound process that I've used for Jeanty specifically?
I think it makes sense. I think it's this whole using the yards projection makes sense because you could kind of 12 touchdowns times 155 yards. Oh,
true, right? Yeah.
That would say that Jeanty is implied for like more than almost 1,900 scrimmage yards, and so that's one where it's interesting. Like I would have kind of gone into it like thinking that Jeanty is like actually gonna not meet what a touchdown projection says his consensus ranking should be, but now
the offense is a bottom 10 offense, right?
Yeah. I thought it'd be I could see him have 1,500 scrimmage yards easily, but only 6 touchdowns. So it's actually interesting the projection this work the other way.
Yeah, and maybe maybe Geno Smith makes it so this offense actually does score points, and maybe I'm kind of betting on that a little bit, like a quarterback actually throwing for 20 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, and I mean, Jeanty is an interesting one. It's, I mean, 12 total touchdowns, because I think really like the 8 rush feels solid. It's like the 4 receiving. And so that's one where you had like a 21% running back target share too. Yeah, but I think what you've said makes sense, and I'd be curious to look. I wonder if you like lay the data out this way, Kyle. But like, I'd be curious to look at like how you have like each team ranked in like total touchdowns based on these projections. And
I do have the ranking here.
Yeah, why don't we take a look at that one?
Raiders are what? The Raiders are tied for 22nd.
So maybe it does. Maybe that is then a very like justifiable projection for Jeanty. Maybe it's like, and we'll get into it more next week. But like, that's a question of like Bowers. I saw you had 6 projected touchdowns, but Bowers, like, I'm sure the target share number, the yards he accumulated, might
he underproduced his touchdowns last year, right? So it's continuing to like, because what I've noticed is the players that seem to underproduce, they continuously underproduce. It's just by how much do they underproduce or not. Now, there was a couple of weird things I wanted to share. Brian Robinson Jr. His yards expectation 6.23. His touchdown expectation 6.22. A 0.01 difference. So, I mean, expect Brian Robinson Jr. to score 6 touchdowns again. I mean, that's where I have him. 6 rushing, yeah, and then I think that was just his rushing, not his receiving. But yeah, Audric Estime last year 6.26 based on the yards, and he played. I mean, he scored 2 touchdowns, but he didn't play 17 games. So based on if he played 17 games, it would have been 2.62 touchdowns exactly. His yards. It was just a crazy math that it fit exactly, and so I thought that was hilarious.
That's a good one. I mean,
Jason's just asking, "What's your trade of the week?" And yeah, we've gone through the episode. We are going to get to trade of the week here.
Want to say last minute. I just want to say the Sincere McCormick one is the funniest one. That's like another just one, like pure math quirk, right?
And it's 5 games, right? That's the reason he played 5 games. He got all those yards in those 5 games, but didn't score a touchdown. So he just underproduced it by crazy. All right, so let's get the background up. Jamie's back, and we are ready for trade of the week. So it's a 10-team start 10 super flex league, half PPR scoring. It's a 5 for 5. So there are 10 assets involved in this trade, 5 on each side. On the first side, it's 9 players and 1 pick. So the one thing that does look different is there's a 26 first here on this side, and the side with the first also has T. Higgins, Elijah Moore, Joshua Palmer, and Tyrone Tracy. So those 5 assets for these 5 players: Rome Odunze, Jameson Williams, Darnell Mooney, Tucker Kraft, Ray Davis. The first thing I wanted to do to quickly get this done, just ask this quick question. The top 4 assets in this trade, they seem like they're evenly dispersed, 2 on each side. So is it fair to just, for now, remove those assets, the 26 first, T. Higgins, Odunze, and Williams? Like, those are by far the 4 best assets, and it's not even close. Is that fair to say?
I agree. Yeah, I like sectioning that trade off the way it's suggested.
So take those. So make a 2 for 2 on this side, but you also have the 3 for 3. And let's focus on the 3 for 3 for now. 2 receivers with Elijah Moore and Tyrone Tracy, and the other one is 1 at each position: a receiver, a tight end, a running back, Mooney, Kraft, and Davis. So what did you think of those? Those 3 for 3 parts of the trade.
And personally, I think it's very lopsided to one team's favor. I really prefer the Mooney, Kraft, Ray Davis side, and those might just like personally be like all player takes, like my guy territories. But I think just like Tyrone Tracy is really the only piece that I put in like a comparative tier. Some might say Tracy is the best or highest value of like Tracy versus Mooney, Kraft, Davis. I wouldn't disagree, but I don't think the Moore and Palmer, the Bills receiver side, make up for like the other pieces. Personally, I think it's a lopsided into one side. Yeah,
I had the same take looking at it. That was when you took out the top four pieces, the Mooney, Kraft, Davis side was better, right? Because Davis and Tracy might not be that much different. Like if Scatterboot really takes over, we're looking at two guys that are backup running backs, valuable backups, but still backups. So then you just look at the other two pieces. Yeah, I think Mooney might out target Moore and Palmer combined, and see what Kraft does. But Jamie, did you think the same way with those three assets or those six assets? I guess.
So I'm heavily leaning on that first and T. Higgins because those are the major top assets in this whole trade.
I know, but I wanted to set it up that when we talk about like the four main pieces after, we have an idea of are we already dealing from one side being overpriced? Like, do you agree that Mooney, Kraft, and Davis is better than Moore, Palmer, and Tracy? Take out the top four assets. Look at the
Kraft, Davis. I'd rather have Kraft and Davis way over Tracy and Mooney
Palmer.
and Palmer. Like Palmer's
and then Mooney over Elijah Moore, I imagine as well. So I think we're all in agreement that when you take out the top four assets, the Mooney, Kraft, Davis side is better. Now, the trade really does come down to what are those top four assets. So Higgins in a first versus Odunze and Jamison Williams. So now we can get to that knowing that we're kind of starting at the Odunze Williams side already being in the lead before we evaluate that aspect. Right? So just to know that in the back of our minds.
Yeah. Which I think that's true. It's maybe like that with like when you get to the premium assets, it's like is the price of the premium assets enough to like outweigh that difference? And I actually really think both those sides are very balanced. T in a first for Odunze and Jamison Williams feels like very much a split to me. Like you might put T as the first in value and the first is the fourth in value, and you kind of get the middle. So I feel like that's like a very even side, and it could fit like maybe the T side gets both the points and the flexibility of a first, but Odunze and Jamison Williams I think are great lotto tickets for like a true young wide receiver breaking out to like a high scoring, like, high end wide receiver 2 in scoring. Shots that I wouldn't mind taking to where like, okay, like I think I think it's pretty balanced with those top two on each side, personally.
So I'm not interested in Palmer. I don't even think you get a 4th round pick for that guy. But if you put in every single piece in this trade, I still think it heavily goes on that Higgins and first.
Well, why do you think that's? Why do you think Higgins versus
Higgins? You can get the 105 for Higgins straight up, right? And you're getting another first, so you're getting 2 first. Which Odunze is probably worth a later first. Jamison Williams, same thing, later first, but you're getting 2 earlier first for those. So now you take Tracy, him and Kraft would probably be about even, right? Then like Davis for Elijah Moore and Palmer. You got to remember, people are sleeping on Elijah Moore. He's at the age
people sleeping on Elijah Moore?
I mean, so Elijah Moore is best.
I don't know. I mean, ignore Elijah Moore is like almost irrelevant for me in this trade. Like,
Palmer
but you have to remember it's a 26 first, right? It's a 20. Yeah, it's a 26.
I was trying to divide that so we could talk about those pieces and talk really about the top 4. Higgins the first, Odunze and Williams, right? Like, are you, to Rahul's point, are you willing to liquidate that 26 first into Odunze or Williams? Like, I'm curious what you guys think of that. Like, right now, would you give up a random 26 first for either Odunze or Williams?
I probably would. I would. It like obviously team dependent, like flexibility dependent. If I was like starving for assets, am I gonna commit a future first to Odunze and Williams are still both pretty risky bets, right? But I do think the reward is so high in the case of like both like their potential, like Odunze and JMO at like their ceiling outcomes, could be like perennial wide receiver one scorers in fantasy. They both are like have the draft capital, talent profile that Bears will have to see. Lions, the team is there already. Like I think like the value swing you can get from those, I'd take those two assets individually over a random 2026 future first is how I would see it.
Yeah, I think the reason I wouldn't want to trade the first for those players is again the flexibility of do I have to decide right now? Can I even just wait into the season, see how my team's going, and decide, okay, is it the best to trade this? And also better idea of which players I want to trade for. So my only hesitation is I think I'd just right now rather have a 26 first, but I like if I could get both of them, right? Like getting both the Dunze and Williams in the trade does kind of make it worth it. Now the problem is you're tearing off from Higgins, and I guess it's also I've tried to also think of this trade contender versus rebuild, right? Like you want a 26 first if you're a rebuilder, but you really don't want to get older from a Dunze or Williams to Higgins. So it really feels like that side is a contender side that plans to use the first in season to trade. And you're plugging Tracy maybe into your lineup. Now it's between either the Bills receivers, you're kind of hoping one of them emerges, I suppose. So my thought was, if you take out the top four assets, I think I'd rather have Mooney, Kraft, Davis over Tracy and the Bills receivers. I think at the top end, I'd rather have Higgins in the first than Dunze and Williams. And because those are the assets that are worth more, they weigh more in the deal. And I kind of tend to lean on Jamie's side, or at least that's the side I wanted to lean on. It just feels like the bottom end of that trade is so bad. The other problem with the other trade, though, is by giving up a first and getting 5 players, you're getting that extra roster spot. Like you have to cut a player. So if you have an Elijah Moore, Josh Palmer lying around type player, like okay, you don't mind cutting them, but like if that side really doesn't have a good player to cut, then you're losing that player in the trade too. Even if the other manager,
I would say that's very valid. I would say this is a super deep league. There's some garbage on our benches. So is it
one of those where even though it's start 10 and it's 10 team, you have too many bench spots?
Too many bench spots. This is my first Dynasty home league that we set up. So.
I mean, we hear Dynasty larger rosters, right? But it does, especially with only you want big benches if you're going to be starting 12. But when you start 10, like I know in my start 10 league, I made it, so I think there's 12 bench spots.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's I just cut Spencer Rattler for context.
Did you just say you have 12 bench spots on a Dynasty?
No. Isn't
that what we have in the FBC Dynasty League, Jamie?
Oh, so the FFP Dynasty, that is such a hard league because you can only keep 1 year on the taxi, and
there's only 12 bench spots. So a lot of decisions.
I don't understand that, man. Like you need at least 20 bench spots, and you need to be able to keep like 2 to 3 years on the taxi squad. It makes it so much more fun to be able to stash players.
I mean, the taxi squad rule that was voted on. Like more managers wanted 1 year than 2 years. Maybe we've had enough manager turnover. That's something we could consider voting on again. But that was.
Well, I wasn't involved in this vote because I wasn't in the league yet. I took over the orphan.
What did I just say? What is the sentence I just said? Anyway, so yeah, I think I'm leaning the first in the Higgins side. Again, just the flexibility of the first. I don't have to decide that it's Rome or Williams right now. Now, the one reason that other trade wins is if Odunze is the wide receiver one for the Bears this year. He overtakes DJ Moore immediately. He might outproduce T. Higgins. Now, in my projections, I've got Higgins higher. So even though he's a little older in Dynasty, like I still have Higgins ranked higher in Dynasty than Odunze and Williams. And that's where that side really, I'd rather just, what's the one asset in this trade I want the most? It's T. Higgins.
Yeah.
And the second thing might actually be that first. And when I see 2 assets like that on the same side, that's probably the side I'm leaning on, in spite of the back 3 not being as good as the other side.
I can't disagree with that. It's one where I bet you'd probably rank Odunze and Jameson Williams above a 2026 first in like some rankings, but I like the preference of having that flexibility. I definitely see that.
Also depends on where that first projects. So if you go to Dynasty Daddy, they could actually kind of help you project it. If it's a mid, early, or a late, that's going to change everything.
So actually, I guess the context, the team that's getting these 5 pieces, is it their own first?
It is their own first, a team that lost in the semifinals last year. So
they view themselves as a contender, yet they are selling Higgins, right? So they're admitting, okay, I'm giving up a first to get extra pieces, to get extra starter, at least one extra starter in there. But I'm also getting younger from Higgins to a younger receiver. Like I can see why that makes sense for them.
Yeah.
At the same time, as a contender, I'd want Higgins, right? So it's a tough part to reconcile, right? Because it's tough to know who's better to rebuild or contend with these 2 pieces.
The interesting context is the team that, so this is a league that I'm in, and the team that received T in the first, I own that team's first. We talked about that trade on this channel, Achane in the first for Ken Walker and AJ Brown, and I received the first, which at that time I thought was going to be like a potential top 4 first. And then this team goes ahead and gets T Higgins and another first to use. So not favorable for my trade.
Are you going to try and trade for players off? Like, are you going to now try and trade for T Higgins off this guy? Right? Like, that's the play, right?
I
like,
should.
If you've got there first, try and weaken their team somehow.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah, it's an interesting trade. I really did think, going in from looking the first 2 pieces, I felt that was a pretty balanced one, but then it's like the second half like kicks it way over the top for the Odunze and JMO side. So I thought I preferred to receive that side, but I also clearly had.
You're putting the 26 first as the 4th best asset. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's where I really struggled. Was I was pretty confident Higgins is the best asset, but what's 2, 3, 4? Like I have Odunze higher than Williams, but like I think actually maybe not. I don't know. They're both pretty close, but like,
I mean, would you forget sending a first for them? Would you accept just a 26 first for Odunze or Jameson Williams if they were on your rosters?
So wait, I'm giving up my 26 first?
No, you're giving up either Odunze or JMO for a 26 first, just a 26 first.
If I'm a contender, yeah, I'd give up my first for those guys.
No. And it's because you think
would you sell
to buy something else.
Yeah. So you would sell one of those guys for a single first.
If it was a late first, if I knew I was a contender. Like hands down top 3.
No, you're buying the first. Like
you're buying
the
first.
Players on your roster. Are you willing to give away either Williams or Odunze just to get a random 26 first?
It can't be random, man. I need to know where it's going to fit.
You don't know where it's going to fit. You can think you know where it's going to fit based on projections, like we've done tonight, right? And let's say your best guess is that they look like they're a playoff team that isn't a heavy contender. Like you don't expect. This team
I'm going to keep Odunze because Odunze, I already got him on my team for the 106, right?
Yeah, 106 to 108.
Why would I re-roll that when I know this dude's elite? He's connected with an elite quarterback for the next 3 years of his career.
Who's that? Who's an elite quarterback?
Caleb Williams.
I mean, I don't. He's not an elite quarterback. We think we want him to be an elite quarterback. We've seen it with Trevor Lawrence, though. These guys can get stuck with 4% touchdown rate as a max.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens, but they are building around him. They're bringing in weapons for him. So I could see him if they give up DJ Moore. We know if DJ Moore wasn't on that team, Odunze would be a 4th round pick in drafts this year.
Sounds like everyone should watch the Breakouts episode where we talked about a certain wide receiver involved in this trade.
Anyway, so Nico's asking where the rest of the team's TD projections. I wasn't planning to share them or release them, but if you really do want them, like feel free to reach out to me. My Twitter handle is @SenraSays if you want access access, I'm willing to share as a view only with some people. Like I've shared with my co-host. So if you're on Twitter, reach out to me there. If not, I guess leave a comment under the video, and I'll keep checking back, and I'll try and find a way to connect. But yeah, that's I can make it accessible to people who would like me to share. But yes, thank you for sharing this 2 hours of our time. I mean, this been a little longer. Sorry, Joe, but we did want to get through a lot of projections. Like, because I mean, we barely got through a ton of projections. Like we did. There's a ton of teams we didn't look at, right? And we still took 2 hours. So we tried, Joe, to get it. Anything you guys want to say before we head out of here?
Great episode. Thank you, Kyle, for sharing the projections and like how you think about it. It's like, as I say, I feel like every week, but it's truly true. I gained so much in my game from both of you, so it was a privilege to be here for these 2 hours.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to hang out with all the elite fantasy analysts this weekend at the Fantasy Football Expo. We're going to be rocking the 6-pack with Joe Bond all weekend. And one more thing, if you're still rocking kickers and team defenses, consider upgrading your fantasy league. Like, you upgraded from dial-up, man. Like, catch up. It's 2025. So until next time, we're going to have faster takes. We're going to have sharper insights and sleepers and zero buffering. So peace out, bros.
I'd say something, but my brain is buffering for a joke. But I will say we'll see you all next time as Rahul gets his wish and we talk a full redraft episode. Not that this didn't feel like it tonight, but enjoy next week for the redraft special of the Dynasty 6-pack. See you all next week.